Today we have with us Miss King from FAMU Law, and she's a coordinator, and she's going to be talking to us about interview tips. Without further ado, I'll let you take it away. Thank you for being here, Miss King.
Of course, and thank you for inviting me here. Glad to be here today. Give you guys a little bit of tips on how to interview for law school. So, just to get started, my name is Imani King, and I am a admissions coordinator and recruiter. Feel free at the end, I'll have my contact information. You can always reach out to me for questions, one-on-one Zoom appointments, anything of that nature. And then I'll just get started with a little bit of info on FAMU College of Law itself. So we're located, of course, in the downtown area of Orlando, Florida, not too far from the downtown campus for UCF. We have a traditional Juris Doctor program. There is a holistic application process for those of you who may be in the midst of starting your applications. You're considering applying to FAMU. We do have a holistic approach with an admissions committee. And so there's a wide variety of ways that we kind of look at you as an applicant and as a prospective student. And so we do have several legal clinics as well for in terms of what we offer to students, such as guardian ad litem, economic justice, mediation. A lot of our mission is based in community work, equity and justice in terms of community work as well. But with that traditional Juris Doctor program, we don't have concentrations, but you can take classes in anything that you are interested in. And then for the next part, we do also offer externships. So, say the legal clinics aren't exactly the pathway that you're aiming towards, we do try and place you wherever you are interested in terms of your academic career as to becoming a lawyer. And then we do have a full-time and part-time program. For those of you who may want to keep a full-time job, the full-time program is 3 years and the part-time program is 4 years. And then we have a multitude of student organizations, pro bono programs, mentoring programs as well, and we have a merit scholarship. And so I'll pause for a moment if you guys have any questions, like general questions, anything like that. Oh, well, I also see there will be questions for the end of the session. I'm sorry. But
You're
yes, so
fine. We
that's
can
just
take
general
questions
information
now as
on.
well if you'd like.
Oh, okay. So, yeah, if you guys have any general questions about the program, anything like that, feel free to ask in the chat before we move on to more specifics with the interview. You can also ask those general questions in the chat as well. But just an overview also on our merit scholarship that is basically based off of LSAT and GPA only. And so I know there's some people who are curious on terms of that funding and stuff like that. That is based off of LSAT and GPA. And then also our mentoring program does actually pair you with a usually recently in the last 10 years or so barred attorney basically. And so it's a great program opportunity for students that they do get to get experience and get guidance throughout their education as well. And since I don't see any general questions, I'll move on to the interview tips. So, interviewing advice. So in terms of law school interviews, it's like coming in with the confidence of a job interview, but the academic side, of course, is a lot more in terms of importance. And so don't expect too much of a sales pitch from the universities that you are interested in. When you come into a law school interview, they aren't going to be there to sell you their school, basically. So in terms of expecting the questions that you can expect and stuff like that. Of course, you want to show up with professional attire. And one of the main questions that you may get is why law school? So this can pair along with that personal statement that you write, making sure you understand yourself and your goals, where you want to go to in life, not necessarily having to say, I just want to be an attorney, because there's a lot of things you can do with a JD. And then also making sure to do your research on the institution beyond their medians. So making sure you know the school's mission, which is a point that is a little bit lower, but also making sure you do that research on, say, maybe some professors you're interested in, maybe other recent facts regarding recently um, put in judges and stuff like that who were alumni and stuff, having ideas on that as well. And also, a question you may get is why and how the institution can help you to achieve your goals. A lot of times, these interviews are relatively short, 20 to 30 minutes. So you'll have time to kind of talk about yourself and your goals, but understanding yourself and being as concise as possible is also important with relevance to the institution. So giving generic statements may not stand out as much when talking to the institution itself. And of course, there will be resume specific questions as well at times because the application process is holistic. You have to be aware that a lot of times the interviewers will probably have all aspects of your application in mind as they are asking you questions. So the other point about handling blemishes on your record, if you have anything referring to character and fitness, anything referring to certain GPA struggles you may have had an addendum about, expect to be asked about that, basically. And in terms of who may be actually in the room for the interview itself, you may find that there are alumni in the room. You may find that there are admissions administrators. You may find that there's actually higher up administrators as well. Um, and then also you can expect maybe faculty. It really does depend on the school itself. For instance, our school is faculty governed. So you may find in interview situations, if there is ever an opportunity, in terms of interviews, that you will be in the room with admissions coordinators, or maybe the admissions dean, as well as faculty members as well. So keeping that in mind when you're in the interview, having that confidence and basically awareness of how you may tackle some of the questions that they may toss to you. Of course, there may be some generic questions as well in terms of that you're familiar with beyond the Y Law School. Just it really is dependent on the school itself. Um, and let's see if there's anything else that I can give you an advice before we take some questions. Um, oh, one thing I can say, in a job interview, you may ask sometimes, why should I join your company? Do not do that with a law school. Do not do that with the interviewing in university. That's really not as advised in terms of trying to get them to sales pitch you because you applied. You obviously have interest. You're showing up to the law school. It's more about your research and getting to know you as that applicant and as that student and how much you fit their mission as well. And I think that's most of my tips. I decided to leave a lot of room for questions as well. Do you have any?
Students, feel free to put your questions in the chat or unmute if you'd like. I think we've had a question before about how long do law school interviews normally last?
Mm-hmm. So about 20 to 30 minutes, usually. So it's not an extensive interview at times, but it still can, it may actually feel a little bit long going through those 30 minutes of continuous questions about you as a student and your potential.
Are panel interviews common?
So it's definitely common to have more than a couple people in the room. Um, it does vary school by school, but it is common to probably have at least three.
In your experience, is there any questions that you think students shouldn't ask in the interviews?
So, I think still the biggest one would be why should they go to institution? So basically, the student asking, why should I go to FAMU College of Law? Our expectation is that you're aware of why you want to go, why you really feel you fit as a student. So that's definitely something I would say to avoid. And I think there isn't too much else. Um, so interviews do vary. I do see the question in the chat of usually our interviews are before acceptance into law school. So it does vary on the process. I know for some interviews it's based off of them really wanting to get to know you as a student. Um, Most of the time it is around the time close to acceptance. So it is for acceptance, but at times it can be ranging to being for a scholarship consideration as well. So it does range law school to law school.
Do you recommend if students have questions about scholarships that they bring it up in the interview or wait till a separate time?
I think I think it would be whether or not how formal the interview feels, because a lot of times schools will usually tell you what they do offer. And maybe they even will have an offer package almost, well, not necessarily offer package there, but at times they will tell you what they do offer in terms of having that reference on the website. And that goes back to kind of doing the research of the school itself. But some interviews are formal and some interviews are a little bit more relaxed than that. And so I would say test the environment as well. You'll find a lot of law schools when you talk to law school representatives, a lot of us say it depends, because it really does depend on the school, their policy, and what they do at that time.
We also have a question, what's a good way to handle a question that students don't know the answer to?
So, okay, so that one is a little difficult. It's almost, I would say, like trying to relate to as much of it as possible without maybe letting it uh get away from you, I would say. So it's very hard to control anxiety, of course, when you're in the interview process. So if they hit you with a question that you were not expecting, sometimes it may be a little difficult to pivot yourself. But I would say always to the best of your ability, or at least handle it with confidence and grace, even if it's not a super extensive answer. And what qualities do a lot of school interviewers tend to value the most? Um, Definitely, I would say that when you go into the interview, that confidence and that aspect of research, showing that there is an enthusiasm for the school you want to attend. And because the assumption is you're showing up to this interview, you want to attend this law school. Um, so not revealing, especially comparing law schools. Actually, that's something I forgot to say. Definitely not trying to say why is your school better than other law school. When you're showing up to that interview, they want to feel as if you know you're the right fit, or at least this is the right fit for your pathway. That's why they would ask how and why this institution would help you to achieve your goals, because this is helping you. They want to know how does this school fit and how do you fit as a student in terms of your pathway towards becoming an attorney, a judge, whichever prosecutor, whichever pathway you want to choose, basically. Let's see. And what qualities? Okay, answered that one. What questions would you recommend us asking the law school during the interview? So, let's see. Um, some, so I think it really does depend on, once again, the, I guess, vibes of the interview itself. Sometimes you can ask them if they want you to expound a little bit more on something within your resume, or within your experience, within your, or you can ask them about the culture itself. You should be aware of the culture itself, but if there's anything that's not on the website that you noticed, maybe there isn't something in your research that you noticed about certain opportunities that align with your goals. Maybe you can ask that in a way without, just like a general way of what may be missing from the website, if any, or missing from your research, if any. Or you can ask about what opportunities you can look forward to, that they may have that's outside of just, internships and stuff like that. Like we offer community service opportunities. So if that's something that interests you and you want to do, say, volunteering, something that's a little bit harmless. But of course, that's more of if you desire to really ask something. Otherwise, I would say anything that may be missing from the details that you want clarification on, in terms of how when you look forward to hearing back if they don't say it. Usually they'll say something. So yeah, once again, that favorite word of law school admissions, but it depends.
For out-of-state students that may be from a different state than the law school they're hoping to attend, do you have any recommendations for them within the interview to kind of showcase their interest to be at that school?
So I definitely would say, because I even see it sometimes in personal statements, but out-of-state students, sometimes we understand that tuition can be expensive for an out-of-state student. And so sometimes it's difficult to gauge if an out-of-state student really desires to go to that school. So referencing what really draws you in, being very specific about the mission and your enthusiasm for not only the being a part of the community of the area, since we do a lot of community work, I would say it'd be it's always great to see students relate to that aspect of the mission itself to say that's why they want to attend and that's what stands out to them, from that law school versus staying local, basically. So definitely showing your enthusiasm and how much research you've done and your intention to actually go through with the transition, basically the moving.
Thank you. And do you have any tips on email etiquette for like after the interview or leading up to the interview, how students can stay in touch with the interviewers?
So I think a letter of continued interest never hurts. As long as it's not something that's kind of rushing a response, I would say a nice formal concise email or even an attached letter of continued interest to really show that this is where you want to go. I don't think, at least in our office, that doesn't hurt. Um Anything that's not necessarily demanding, but more so just like I really feel like I want to affirm that this is the school for me and my goals. That I don't think that can hurt. We always look back as students who send those letters, especially if they're waitlisted students. We do always look back at that.
For students that may have had like experiences like working for different attorneys or maybe like family members that have attended law schools or just different connections within the law school, is there any, do you recommend that they bring that up in the interview or just kind of get tips from the people that they know going into the interview?
So I definitely think getting tips will be is an important thing. But I think it's the same way as personal statements. You can relate to it and say that you have always, you currently work and so you have the experience, and so that's why law school is something that is great for you because you know how to even read cases and stuff like that. If you worked as a paralegal, or an assistant, anything like that, that can always help. But make sure that you're talking about yourself, basically. So, if you're in the interview itself talking about somebody else, not always the best way to remain focused on yourself as a student and your goals. So I would say focusing on yourself is definitely a little bit more important than necessarily your network. Your network can be good for letters of recommendation, basically, especially if it's a professional network. That can be better for the letters of recommendation space. Yeah.
And you mentioned that they might bring up blemishes on your record. Do you have any tips for how students can handle bringing up maybe times where they like academically dipped a little bit and they've recovered since then?
So I'd say keep that to your addendums. Only bring that up in an interview if you're asked. Um, if you're not asked, then we saw it in the application. We saw the proof that, okay, your freshman year, um, it was hard transitioning from high school to college. You started off with a 2.1, but then we see you finished with a 3.7. We we don't need the explanation after that. Basically, the if you add an addendum to it or anything like that, that's great. We can actually see the growth. We can see the history through your transcript. But in terms of actually, I would say bring it up in the interview, don't do that unless asked.
Thank you. And is there any interviews that you've seen that you really thought were like great or that stood out to you?
So, I will just say I haven't done too many, but I am aware of what we're looking for, and I would just say um, the concise, the concise ones, basically concise students who answer questions well, who show that confidence with it. Not asking for perfection. You don't have to walk in as a perfectly extroverted person, but being well spoken and being able to answer those questions in a focused manner of sorts, and really just conveying who they are. That's what I could say.
Thank you. And do you have any tips
Okay.
for students to practice when they're preparing for their interviews, maybe with like other people or any like resources?
I would definitely say practice with other people. And if you have a career center that helps with that, definitely do mock interviews at your career center because sometimes practicing with a friend can be great for a script, but you're already comfortable with your friend a lot of times. So I would say getting out of your comfort zone and going to your career center to do those mock interviews can help greatly.
Thank you. And we also have VMock, which is like an AI interview software that you guys could check out as well on our website as well.
See, other resources.
Mhm.
Any
Students,
other
do you have any
questions?
other questions? If you want to drop them in the chat or mute. All right. Well, thank you so much, Ms. King. We really appreciate all the tips that you've given us.
No.
Is there like a website? Well, I guess students can check out the FAMU website if they have more questions about anything. Oh, and thank you. And then this is her contact information.
I forgot to put that slide up, but that is my contact information, and then I can pull up the website. Um, but it is law.famu.edu, and that's where you can schedule a tour. You would just go to this prospective student section, and that's where basically you can get as much information as possible. First time law students, scheduling a visit. We always encourage prospective students to schedule a visit because our student ambassadors do the tour and you can find out the actual culture from the students as well. Um, so I definitely encourage you to go out to that as well if you are in the area. But otherwise, yeah, our website should have pretty much everything, how to apply, what we look for in the application, stuff like that.
Well, thank you so much. We really appreciate all the tips that you shared, and we really appreciate you. Thank you for answering all of our questions.
Of course, glad to help. Thank you for the invitation. And if you guys have any questions, of course, you can always reach out. I'm going to put my email in the chat if it isn't already there.
Thank you.
All right, and I'll put the